Good morning. My name is Rabbi Wyne, and I'm your host here on Life is Great, where every Sunday morning we get together and we discuss a universal value that will enrich your life that is derived from Judaism. And I'm very excited today because we are going to talk about something that is so important and so impactful. It touches everybody, and it will actually take us 2 episodes to really explore this value. Welcome back. I will tell you that over the years in the rabbinate, one of the most uncomfortable discussions I ever have is that when we're talking about money and giving charity. It's very interesting. One of the great rabbis of the previous generation, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, he used to tell the story, and my experience concurs with his, even though I'm no Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, was that people would come to him about all sorts of questions. What do I do in business? What do I do with my wife? What do I do with my children? How do I treat my dog? I mean, everything out of the sun, but one thing they never asked is, where do I send my charitable funds? He says, for some reason, everybody knows the answer in that one. It's an interesting thing. Money has the power to help and to heal, and it also has the power to divide and destroy. But it is a great gift that we have, and especially this ability to give what we call in Judaism tzedakah. Tzedakah is poorly translated as charity. But what tzedakah really means is it means a person's ability to do justice. You know, the United States of America, we live in the most blessed country ever. But I believe the reason God blesses our country so much is that we, more so than any other country, we give more foreign aid on a formal basis and an informal basis. The founding fathers inculcated the value of kindness, of charity, and of giving to our country. And we fulfill that on a daily basis. And because we are kinder to each other and we're kind to others, I believe that's why the Almighty blesses us. But on a more personal level, charity, giving tzedakah, doing the just thing, the right thing, is a difficult and sometimes confusing thing. The question is, why should we give? To whom should we give? And how much should we give? I went out to my favorite coffee bean and I asked some of you this question. Let's hear what you had to say, and then we'll come back and I'll share with you some of the great insights of the Talmud, of the great sages of our past days in terms of their opinions and their thoughts in terms of how to get the most out of this particular commandment. So, do you give money to charity?
Yes, I do.
About how much do you give? Are you generous? Are you?
I give to USO. I give to 3 Square. I give to the Salvation Army. Breast cancer, because that's close to my heart with my daughters, and some others.
What are some of the reasons you would give to charity or to a particular charity?
Because I want to share with others, especially during the holidays I give.
Okay, beautiful. All right. Do you give money to charity?
Yeah, usually whenever I go to stores or anything, I see a charity going on. I mean, I ask about what it is. It seems like it's a decent cause. I like to contribute as much as possible. I mean, it's always nice to give back.
Based on how much you make, would you consider yourself generous or stingy?
Probably in between. I mean, I'd consider myself more generous than stingy, though.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say that I'm just like all the way out generous all the time.
Okay. Tell me, what is some reasons that you would give to a particular charity as opposed to a different charity?
I guess it would just all come down to, I mean, if there's a charity for, like we had a charity here once, it was for women's clothing. I noticed that less people were donating to it because of just the way it was presented. Okay. And so sometimes when people present certain charities, it doesn't seem like the money is really going to something that is helping. But then, you know, you get the charities that are for, you know, cancer, breast cancer, and you know, children with diabetes, what we're doing right now. You know, whenever I see those kind of things, I like to contribute as much as possible.
Tzedakah, charity. How much should you give? To whom should you give? Why should you give? There is a wonderful story told about a priest, a minister, and a rabbi, and they're getting together. You know, men of the cloth talk about their clothes, right? So they're talking about, you know, how do you divvy up what's for the Lord and what's for your community? You know, you collect the plate. So the priest was fun. He said, well, you know what I do is I take all the money, I put it in a big sack, and I dump it on the table, and whatever stays on the table, that's for us. And whatever falls off on the floor, well, I guess the Lord wants that. The minister says, I have a similar approach to things. I take the money, I spread it out all over the table, and I kind of shake the table, and some of it falls down, and that goes to the poor. Obviously, the Lord wants me to give that away, but the rest, we kind of keep around closer to home. The rabbi says, I have another way I do it. I take all the money gathered together, I throw it up heavenward. Whatever God wants, he can keep. Okay? Now, obviously, you know that anybody that's involved in making the world a better place, whenever they are given certain amounts of resources, they are always living on the edge. Now, I will tell you something that I learned from my rabbi. Whatever opportunities you have to make the world a better place, you take advantage of it and do it right as you can. And have trust the Almighty will give a little more tomorrow, and then you can take care of tomorrow. So if you're not trying to do the most with what you have, then you're doing the wrong thing. But let's get more to the heart of things. Let's get to, why should you give charity? Why should any of us give tzedakah? I want to share with you a few reasons. The first one, which is perhaps very, very obvious, is when you give, it makes you feel good, doesn't it? When a person gives to others, you just feel good. But the question is, why do you feel good? It is an interesting thing that whenever we behave like the Almighty, we feel closer to God and we feel good. Even if I'm not really thinking about God. Listen, there's plenty of people out there that are atheists or agnostics or just they have very little God consciousness. But they do things and they connect with something that they can't quite explain. Perhaps in a future edition of Life is Great, we'll talk about what they're connecting with. But for now, we have to realize that when we behave godly, we connect with God. And when we connect with God, we feel much better about our lives. So ask yourself for a second, what is God's job? Yeah? I ask you, what do you do with your time? You say, one person says I'm a salesman, another guy says I'm a lawyer, another guy says I'm a doctor. Fine, that's what you do with your time. What is God's job? So I would say God's job is to be a giver. That's what he does. He puts us in this world and he gives to us and gives to us and gives to us. He gives us life. He gives us air. He gives us opportunities. He gives us people to have relationships with. Well, when we emulate the Almighty, then we also have a deeper connection with God. So God takes care of the poor. When we take care of the poor, we are being like God. And whether we are aware of it or not, our souls are being more in sync with the Almighty. We are more deeply connected. So 1,500 years ago, when the Talmud was published, of course, there were these Roman Caesars that they had discussions with the rabbis of the day. And one time the Caesar goes to the rabbi in a taunting fashion and says, so, Rabbi, if God loves the poor so much, why are there so many of them? And the rabbi explained, I want you to know, the poor in the world will never disappear. They will always exist. And that is because it is our job to take care of them. See, when we see someone who's poor, that's an opportunity to give. It's an opportunity to be more God-like. And when we are more God-like, then we are connected with the Almighty, and we open ourselves to his blessings and his connection. My pediatrician, when I was a young boy, like when I was 8, I remember him discussing it and joking with my father. And he said, hey, the greatest thing we can do for the poor is not become one of them. That is not a Jewish concept. Our job is when we see people that are less fortunate physically or spiritually too, that's an opportunity for us to get excited and to go and help them and to become more connected with the Almighty in that way. The second reason to help and to give charity is something called in Hebrew midah keneged midah, which means measure for measure. I'm sure you've all been exposed to this idea of what goes around comes around. It's the basic idea that if I'm good to others, then others will be good to me. Now, it is true, there's an old saying out there that I despise, but I'll say it anyway, no good deed goes unpunished. But generally, if we do good things for others, then others will do good things for us. Or even better yet, they will do good things for other people. They will pay it forward. So this idea of giving, I don't just give charity because I feel good. I give charity because it's a way to make the world a better place. And every time I make the world a better place, then that helps someone else make the world a better place as well. Measure for measure. There is a certain idea that some people say to me, I give in order to get. You know, someone helps me, I help them. Maybe I'll wait till they help me and then I'll help them. Or maybe I'll help them and expect them to help me. Now, when you hear that, it sounds very crass, very almost rude and harsh. Truth is, that's life, folks. That's life. That's the way most people work. Most people are giving in order to get. Most people have loyalty to others as long as there's something they can get out of them. And it's difficult. But it's not the way it's supposed to be. We have to elevate ourselves. We have to say, I'm going to give even if I'm not getting anything back. I'm going to give even if it doesn't feel good when I give. But I give because I know that I'm making other people's lives better. And I know that if I make other people's lives better, then the world becomes a better place. And eventually, my world will also be better. And it will be better for my children and my children's children. So this is the idea of you give measure for measure. If I give out, then the Almighty arranges that I get back. And when it comes to charity, we get back many-fold from what we give. There is a Talmudic dictum that charity saves a person from death. And you know, this is an important idea, that because we say it in our prayers, and if you swing by my synagogue, Young Israel Aish of Las Vegas, we will make you feel very at home. And I'll tell you that this idea, we say in our prayers many times, that charity saves a person, is a central idea in all of Jewish thought. There's a really wonderful story told in the Talmud about Rabbi Akiva and his daughter. Now again, Rabbi Akiva was one of the greatest rabbis who ever lived. It was about 1,700 years ago. He went to an astrologer, and this was a time when people could actually look at the stars and actually foretell the future. And he was told about his daughter that the night before her wedding, she would die. But what are you going to do? You have to raise a daughter, you have to find her a mate, and kind of like let the chips lay where they go, right? So he raises his daughter, and everything's going wonderful. She finds the right guy, they set the wedding date. The night before the wedding, they're all getting together, having a little family dinner. And while people are talking and visiting, she had her plate of food. She was about to sit down and eat it, and she noticed there was a poor man sitting over there by the outside of the door. So she walked over to the door and opened it up and saw the poor man. He was hungry, obviously. So she took her plate of food and gave it to him. And then she went back in and said, listen, I'm not eating anything tonight. I may as well go to sleep. Well, she lays down in her bed and takes out the pin that was holding her hair together and puts it into the wall, just shoves it inside the wall there. Anyway, she wakes up the next morning and she didn't die. So Rabbi Akiva is very excited about this. He's looking around. And when she pulled the pin out of the wall to redo her hair the next morning, it turns out that pin went through the skull of a poisonous snake. So Rabbi Akiva said, what did you do? Obviously, you saved your life. What did you do? And she explained, well, I actually went and I gave that poor man my food last night, and then I went to sleep. And then Rabbi Akiva explained, that's what the Torah means when it says charity saves a person from death. That we have to realize we don't even know totally what's going on in the world. There's so many things that are happening, so many balls are moving, and we don't even have a grasp of everything that goes on. But we do know that when we act charitable, when we do tzedakah, when we perform tzedakah, when we do the right thing, the just thing, then the Almighty opens us up measure for measure. When we help others, the Almighty arranges that somehow we're helped. And it's not in the same currency. It might be that I help a person with money, but then I have success raising my children or my marriage. I might help someone with money, and then all of a sudden a person gets feeling of now the health problem that was about to hit them, all of a sudden did not hit them. Now, we are not God, and we're not prophets, so we can't lay everything out. But we have principles, and we know. When we give charity, when we give tzedakah, we feel better because we're connecting with God, and we know that charity does save people from death. And the idea is that when we help others, then God helps us measure for measure. There is a third reason why we must give charity, and I will tell you it is a much, much more important reason than the other two. Because we have to. It's an obligation. It's a mitzvah. It's a commandment to give. Now, wait a second. You might stop and say, well, it's an obligation to give? Yeah, it's an obligation to give. We know the commandments. Know there's a God. Don't say the name of your Lord in vain. Keep the Sabbath. Honor your parents. Don't murder. Don't steal. These are all famous commandments. There's another commandment, to open your hand to the poor, to give charity. Now, in the Torah, it's actually framed in agricultural terms. Like, if you stop and you have your field, you should leave the corner of your field open so the poor can go and get. Or, if you want, then when you have your field and you're harvesting, so leave the gleanings for the poor to come and get. But then there's other dictums in the Torah. There's many places in the Torah, in the Bible, where it tells us that we should give charity in various forms. But the point is, it's an obligation. It's a have to. And that have to means that it is more difficult for us to give. See, a lot of times people like to do things when they're not told what they need to do. They like to do it because it makes them feel good. But in Judaism, we say that more important than feeling good is being good. And when we are good, it is an insurance policy for us. When we are good, yes, we feel most often, we feel good about doing good things, but not always. When we are good, most often, we see that the world is good to us. But the most important reason to do the right thing is just because it's the right thing. Now don't go away. My name is Rabbi Wyne. You're watching Life is Great.
I like watching the Rabbi show because as a mom, I find it to be very positive, and anything that is positive in my life makes me a better mom and a better wife. And I look for these little tidbits of wisdom that help me in my everyday and help me, live my life as a better person.
Do you know someone who needs a little more happiness in their life? Maybe it's you who needs more happiness in your life. Yes, you've seen the Life is Great TV show. You perhaps have heard the Rabbi show. But now it's time to get Life is Great, revealing the 7 secrets to a more joyful you. This book was something tangible that you can give your friends and family, where they can keep by their bedside, take it on vacation, leaf through it page at a time or chunk of pages at a time, and each time they will learn another secret, another tool that they can use in order to get the absolute most out of life. What better present can you give your friends and family than the wisdom to live a better life? Welcome back to the Rabbi's Inbox. My name is Rabbi Wyne, and this is your opportunity to send me an email, a question, and I promise that I will answer your question. I might even answer it on the program so that everyone else can benefit from it. All right, the first one is, Dear Rabbi, my son's school wants me to sponsor the jerseys for one of their sports teams. I don't mind giving, but I'd rather have nobody know that I give. Is it okay to give anonymously? Okay, so there's 2 points over here. The first one is, whenever someone says, I don't want anyone to know I give, I am always very suspicious because I, in most cases, believe that they do not give. Most times when people want to give anonymously, it's because they want to hide how little they do give. So, keeping that in mind, that little grain of salt, I will share with you that Jewish tradition has several levels of giving. One of the highest and most noble forms of giving to charity is when the recipient does not know who gave the money and where the giver does not know which recipient it went to. That is one of the most noble ways to give charity. But be that as it may, it's a very specific case where you're going to do that. I do have people that come to me, give me an envelope on occasion, say, Rabbi, please distribute this to somebody who needs it. they don't know who's getting it, and the person who's receiving it doesn't know who gave it. That is very noble. However, again, that only works if you're giving your minimum 10%. Many people need the public social pressure in order to give, in which case I advise people, don't give anonymously. Give in a way, you put your name on the jersey. Many times synagogues, temples, organizations have fundraising galas or dinners, and the lists of people who gave, and sometimes not in an overly, not explicitly, this person gave X amount, but the person gave a diamond page, he gave a silver page, he gave a gold brick, a silver brick. These things are public knowledge, and I think it's very, very good to give in a way that people know you're giving, because that will inspire others to give. So, may you give anonymously? Yes, you may. It is very noble to give anonymously, but be very careful that you're not hiding behind the anonymous cloud to give people the impression that you give when really you don't give. The Almighty knows exactly how much you give and how much you don't give, and a person should give in a way that benefits others in the best way possible. And I believe more often than not, that is giving publicly so that others are inspired to do the same. Okay. The next question is, Dear Rabbi, I have 2 children. One is very generous to a fault. He's always giving away his toys and other possessions to his friends. And the other is very stingy. He condemns his brother and condemns his mother and father for giving. How do I teach them the right path? Okay, this is an interesting question, because the key to life always is balance. Like we said before, a person is not allowed to give more than 20% of their income to charity. That might make them dependent on others. At the same time, a person should not fall into the category of saying, either I don't know how much I give, or I only give 1 or 2% to my income to charity. So it's always about balance. That is the magic, by the way, of the 10% figure. The 10% figure is something that is difficult to do, but not overwhelming. If you can survive on 9 portions of 10, then you can survive on 10 portions of 10. Or perhaps it should be the other way around. If you survive on 10 portions of 10, you can survive of 9 portions of 10. That's what the value of the 10%. The key by teaching your children to give is, first, example, example, example. Let your children see that you give, but let them see you give judiciously. Let them see that you have reasons for giving to the people you give to, and let them see that the purpose of giving is not to gain popularity, it's not to feel like a hero, it's not to get the honor that's given to those who give. Let them see that you give because it's a commandment to give. Let them see that you feel good when you do give. And for the one who's a little more miserly, force him to give specifically. That's right. As long as he's living under your roof, force him to give. Make sure you have a pushka. Make sure you have a charity box in your house. Make sure that he gives to it a little bit every day, and that he will learn to have the pleasure in order of giving, and by doing so, he will turn into a giving person. Okay, my name is Rabbi Wyne, and I want to thank you again for joining me on Life is Great. Please send me your comments and your questions to rabbi@therabbishow.com, and I promise you that I will take care and I will respond to your questions. And don't forget to join us next week at the same time, where we will explore part 2 of giving charity and understand really why charity is tzedakah, why it's the right thing to do. It's justice. And as we involve ourselves in this mitzvah, I want to give you a blessing. The Almighty gives a blessing to you for great prosperity in accordance to your enthusiasm that you have in being charitable to others.
If you tune in to watch the Rabbi Show, I guarantee you that you'll get information that will help you and other people live a better life. If you get a chance to visit our community, pop over. You won't regret it. It's a great community. We love being a part of this community. It's great for families and single people, and it's very loving, very warm, very friendly. When I donate to the Rabbi Show, I feel like I'm not just donating to my community, but I'm donating to anybody else who's watching the show, who, the entire community, anybody else who's out there who just wants that little bit of positive, influence in their life and values, and to help make the world a better place.
Go to therabbishow.com today. Make a donation, and Rabbi Wyne will send you a free Jewish calendar for the new year, along with his personal blessings. All donations are tax deductible and help us share positive values which make the world a better place for everyone.
All the wealth God gives me is really in order that I should benefit others. Spreading Jewish values, positive universal values, those are the things that have led us to have a YouTube channel that has more than 250,000 views on it. It's the weekly radio show, The Rabbi Show, with its own unique website. We do trips to Israel every single year. But my rabbi told me the most important commandment is to live life with joy as much as possible. Because if you have joy and enthusiasm and passion about life, if you really feel the Almighty's love at every corner, so then you will have the direction and the enthusiasm and the energy to fulfill all of the other commandments. And it came to pass. When Yitzhak had become old and his eyes dimmed from seeing, everybody has something they want. When you step into the world of young Israel age, and you're welcomed by the right kind of community for you, so then all of a sudden you have support. You have support in terms of your personal growth, your spiritual growth. You have people you can share the good times with in your life, and people who you can share the difficult times in your life. And the result that we've seen over and over again is the people who become part of our community, they just have a much greater sense of life fulfillment. They have a sense of friendship, of connection with community, of connection with others.
Want more wine? Turn your radio to AM 720 KDWN or go online to therabbishow.com to hear The Rabbi Show starting right after the news at 9 a.m.
So your desire to perhaps do more, it's got to inspire you to take some action. And I'm going to help you out. I want you to take some action right now and find your keyboard and type in www.therabbishow.com. The third tab over will say donate. And this will be a way for you to show yourself that your desire has inspired you to take some action. Invest in our programming. Invest in what we do. Invest in making the world a better place. And the more you invest in it, the more you're going to want to come and check it out for yourself. And you'll come to a class. And if you do, please introduce yourself to me. And hopefully I'll be there at that class too, doing what I want to do over just what I feel like doing.